Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. A lot we could get to today, so want to get to as many questions as we can. But quickly, Chauncey and I both signed extensions with the Trailblazers recently. Big thanks to Jody Allen, Burt Cold, Chauncey Billups, Dwayne Hankins, this entire group, our staffs that are, so impactful to the success we're starting to see. Just really thankful for this opportunity and to get the chance to keep building this thing out, which we're excited about. Jump over to Chauncey, and then we'll get to your questions.
Yeah, I obviously this is an amazing day. I'm really happy, obviously, to be back. I want to thank Joe. When we kind of started this thing together, we had this vision, for what we wanted to do, who we wanted to do it with. Obviously, Dwayne, we all kind of started at the same time. And so I'm just very, very happy, that we can continue this process. I think we're in a really, really amazing place with the organization, with our team. I think you all, along with our fans, can kind of see what we've been building, what we've been working on. And anytime you're building something, you want to see some semblance of where it's at or where it's going to go. I think we can all see that. You look at all of our young players and how they're developing. You look at the young coach, how I'm developing. You look at the young GM, how he's developing. It's just amazing. So I'm just so happy with what we've done and where I think we can go. There's so much promise here, So I'm pumped about it. I want to thank Jody. I want to thank Burt for believing in me, believing in Joe, believing in our union. So I'm just really excited today. It's an amazing day. I know you guys got a ton of questions, so.
Yeah, is there a way to quantify or explain maybe how tenuous the situation was for both of you in terms of being re-signed and how much the turnaround, the 10 of 11, played into the decision to bring you back and then the decision to bring Chauncey back?
The last couple of years, it's been complicated. Rebuilds are tough. We went from, a team that we hoped could be competitive a few years ago to a team that had a really rough season the year prior to, very subpar start to this season. So those are tough, navigating that as a group, and that's something I'm really proud of is how we stayed together. Nobody panicked. We believed in what we were building. We believed in, the group of people we have, including, of course, the players that we have. And when we started taking those steps, it was, I don't think it was anything that surprised us. We just didn't know exactly when that was going to happen. When those guys, started playing the level of defense that we expected, when they, started to be more and more connected, when, we started winning ball games and being really competitive on a nightly basis, that changed everything for us. And we're really proud of, what's happened this second half of the season. Something for us, it's the defensive improvement that we've seen. For us to be the third best defense in the league this second half of the season, that's meaningful and substantive. And that's what we've been trying to build, and that's what we're going to point to moving forward. Like, this is who we are.
But did that shift help you guys continue your position?
Yeah, I think ownership has believed in us all along. Like, you also want to see, results. And once we started seeing, like, legitimate, sustained results, yes, small sample size, half a season, but I think there's a lot of good things to point to that's happened with this roster and this group over the course of the last couple of years since we started this rebuild. And sure, that definitely helped.
Chauncey, you talked about your vision. Can you reiterate what that is and what the tent poles are to that vision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, Jason. It really hasn't changed since I've been here. I just believe our game has changed so much, and it changes every year. But there's certain things about our game that will never change. And starting here next week, you start to watch these playoffs, and these teams continue to advance. It's always going to be the best defensive teams. So I've always been very big on that. As a player, teams that I've won on, we've been pretty good offensively, but defensively we've been elite. And so that's been the main thing. That staple defensively is just kind of being a hard-nosed group and that's what you guys kind of see in front of y'all every day, every night right now. But also just offensively, you know, we have to get so much better offensively, and obviously that's on me. But just being able to play with a good pace and just moving the basketball, playing together, playing for one another has also been a big staple of mine. And it will continue to be that way. And that's the reason why I just love how we're building this team. We're building the defense first, obviously, but also while teaching all of our guys how to play with each other. You know, I think there's so many teams in the league that they have these bona fide superstars that you have to live and die with how that one player plays every night. The way I love our situation is we don't have to live and die with one person offensively every night. We got a lot of different guys contributing every single game. And as you're raising these guys every single year, you get used to that. And I think the best teams play that way. You know, you look at OKC, you look at Cleveland, you look at Boston. The best teams play that way where everybody shares the wealth. And I just believe that we're building that way.
In the past, you've mentioned that this wasn't the team that you signed up to coach, so it was a more veteran team. Now you're re-signed and the team is much younger. What's changed for you and as far as your coaching development and the growth that you've had to where you're looking at a younger team and you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, well, obviously that changed very quickly after I got the job. But one thing about me, when I'm all in, I'm all in. So I'm all in to do the best job that I could from the very beginning. And even though it did change very quickly after, you know, I had to really look myself in the mirror too, you know, and understand how much development I personally needed too. So it probably was good that it changed so we can kind of grow together, you know. I mean, I took this job, I had 1 year of experience. I wasn't like nowhere near where I needed to be, you know, to take a team over the top. So everything happens for a reason. Everything happens how it's supposed to. I've always believed that. So the way that this thing has gone, like we've just kind of grown together. I've learned with the team. I've learned all the things that I needed to learn. And I'll still also know that I got so much growth in me too, you know. So talk about potential. I look at myself first, not just my players. I think I have incredible potential as a coach and so many levels to get to as well. So that's one of the beautiful things about us kind of doing this thing together. And I talk about this a lot with my guys because I never want them to see me as like superior or this or that. No, we really are growing up together in this process, and I think it's actually pretty neat.
This would be for both of you. Joe, you just mentioned the third best defense in the second half of the season. You guys were fourth worst in the league the first half of the season. Obviously, going from bottom five to top five is a pretty extreme swing in one season. So, you know, what is it that you guys have seen or that makes you feel like more confident that what you guys have been the second half of the season is closer to what you guys are than the first half of the season?
I mean, Chauncey can get into, you know, some X's and O's things that we did, but just mentality-wise, I think, you know, obviously we have a young group that they're going to get better over time, so we're seeing that growth, of course. But I think our mentality shifted. We learned that this is how we have to play night in and night out to be competitive. And, you know, it starts getting contagious and, you know, winning starts really fueling you. And I think over the course of time, and we really haven't seen that defense deviate even, you know, down this last couple weeks when we've been more shorthanded than previously. It's a mentality. Like these guys are tough. They're about the right things. They know we need to get stops in order to perform. They're getting more and more connected as we go.
Yeah, I would say to that, there were several things that I could point to, the shift and the change. Because, like you said, I mean, December we were the worst defense in basketball, and there were a lot of things that pointed to that. But I think when it really changed is I kind of got to a point with our squad where I just told them all I didn't really care who it was, the name on the back of the jersey, the salary, the whatever. I didn't care. We were sinking, and we were sinking pretty bad. I said, I'm going to play the guys. They're going to compete and play defense. And if you don't do that, I don't care. You're just not going to play. And I meant that. And they felt that. And it really brought us together. to be honest with you. And, you know, the guys started seeing the beauty in being competitive and the beauty in playing defense. And it's what I've always said, like when you have a connected group, they're just very difficult to play against. And so they kind of got lost in that, you know. So that was just one thing. But it was several things because we were kind of all over the map. But it's in terms of just mentality, it's just kind of who we are. You know, the teams that come in here and play against us, they know they gotta bring their lunch pail. You know, it's gonna be a tough game. Whether you win or lose, it's gonna be tough. That's just kind of who we are.
Joe, Chauncey says he likes how balanced this roster is, but conventional wisdom in the NBA says you need to have a star to build around and style of play and stuff. I'm not sure many people would say you guys have that star to build around. What do you say to that, or do you think you have it?
I mean, a challenge of ours will continue to be to keep adding to our talent base. I think we're really excited about what we have so far. We're far from complete, you know. We're happy with how this season went. We're really excited about what the future seasons will look like. Our challenge is keep finding players, keep developing players. You know, from the development standpoint, we've seen a handful of guys take really nice big jumps this year, and I don't expect those to not continue. And you know, there's a lot of talent on this roster, and I wouldn't put ceilings on a lot of these guys. Like, there's still, you know, a lot of time and a lot of talent that can be maximized here. It's like these guys, I wouldn't write them off to becoming those star level guys. But with that, we've got to keep getting better externally as well.
Jason, one thing on that, I would say to you, Jason, I look around the league, right, and you say having a star, and it's true. You know, you gotta have top flight guys. But to me, I think we're raising that. All right, I think we're growing that. Like, I look at, like, when OKC traded for Shea, he wasn't a star. He wasn't a star yet. Now he's probably going to be the MVP of the league. Joker wasn't a star when he got to Denver. You know, they raised him into that. Giannis wasn't a star when he got to Milwaukee. They raised him into that. And I just think there's beauty in that because, again, when you raise them into that, they're raised playing the right way. And all of those guys, they just play right. They don't like, give me the ball, watch out, I got it. They just play right with the team because they was raised into that stardom. And that's where I think we're trying to go here. You know, you look at hopefully some of the leaps. You look at what Denny's done and Shaden and Scoots taking a leap. I thought Ant had a really good job. I mean, we're raising the guys. I mean, talk about that stretch we was on. I mean, DA was 22 and 15 on that stretch that we just got a lot of situations that we're raising that I think are pretty cool. So most people will say, yeah, go get such and such, or yeah, go. Well, we might have that person. You know, we might already have those guys, but we'll see.
You guys have talked about how much the trajectory obviously shifted mid-season. Does that trajectory, in your opinion, have you in the playoffs next year? Is that the logical next step for this team? The growth of this team is you're in the postseason next year.
Got to get through this transaction window before we start talking with certainty. But moving forward, the playoffs are definitely a goal of ours. Like, this is what we're working towards. Like, the steps we took these second half of the season. Okay, now we got to take this to the next level. Like, we're not happy about our season ending today. We don't want our season to end this time next year. Like, we need to keep moving forward. We'll get through these, you know, see how the draft goes, see how trades and free agency go, and then start talking about what's realistic.
As a follow-up, would you expect that your floor has been raised to a point where that should be kind of the expectation? The floor would be postseason.
I think that's a reasonable expectation, you know, assuming our guys keep getting better, assuming we do our jobs and keep adding talent to this roster. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be competitive, you know, in that regard.
Joe, you've talked a lot about maintaining the long view. Did anything that happened over the second half of this season, the success you guys have, change your approach to this offseason, or maybe even how you approach some of the goals and benchmarks you have in the next year or so?
Going into the season, the previous season, there were so many random injuries and random roster weirdness. We talked about this. We didn't get a lot of data from the previous season. This year, I felt like we got a ton of data. What's working, what isn't, what skill sets do we need to add, what types of personalities do we need to add. We learned a lot about our roster this year. Do we have all the answers yet? No. Are we still learning? Yes. Still the second youngest team in the league, still have a lot to learn about and see from our young players and how these veterans fit in with them. So the approach, though, I think we can definitely be more diligent about the specific type of player that we're adding. And I love that we're at that stage where, as a front office, we don't feel that pressure to keep taking swing after swing to try and hit on the next up-and-coming guy. I think we're starting to feel really comfortable with our talent base that we can be more diligent about adding specific types of guys.
Joe, when you look at things, how do you guard against skipping steps now, as opposed to, you talk about the sample size, it's probably close to half a season, but how much of that is enough data for you to make the necessary steps without, for lack of a better term, getting a little too high on your own supply?
Yeah, that's our challenge, to build this the right way. And it's what we've been committed to and dedicated to not take shortcuts, to make sure this is sustainable, both from a roster construction cap standpoint, but also just a realistic player development standpoint. Given these guys who we've added the opportunity to be their best and to thrive. So it's a challenge to not get speed up. And somehow balancing that with, a level of aggression that we hope to have, as we're trying to get better and better.
Guys, it's been a bumpy 4 years since you took over for Neil. It's very uncommon in the NBA for a GM and a head coach, after 4 years of how it's been, to both still remain with that franchise. Has that experience brought you guys, or explain how that experience has brought you guys closer together and maybe created the bond that sort of made it seem like you guys had to continue this together?
Yeah, it's I tell you what, we've learned a ton, and we've had to learn it together. And we sit in that office sometimes, sitting shaking our head like, man, this is tough. It's not easy, and the fragility of this position, we know it's crazy. So for us to be sitting here today saying, it's been 3 really tough years. This year to me hasn't been a tough year. It's been up and down, but it hasn't been tough. It's been a great year in my eyes. But for us to be sitting here saying, all right, we're moving on, let's keep going. It literally means to me that Jody and Bert and them see a lot of promise in us, and when the rest of the league and most of the league is moving and shaking and doing what they're doing, we're sitting here saying, all right, we're in a good spot. Let's just kind of keep going on this progress and keep progressing through. But it's an honor, it's not easy anymore in this league to be with one team for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's almost rare at this point. So it just lets us know what they think about us, and I'm happy about it. Well, we do. Obviously, Joe and I have been knowing each other since high school, so we've already had a pre-existing relationship, but not like this, And we've literally been in there saying, both of our backs are against the wall. Let's go. What are we gonna do here? So those type of things and that type of mentality and that type of adversity, it only makes you better, man. It only makes you better, and you start to learn what that other person, how they react in tough times. We've learned a lot about each other that way, and I'm happy to say that I'm just so happy that we going forward together, because I believe in him, I believe in his vision, I believe in how he sees the game, and I'm pretty sure he could say the same about me.
Yeah, GM-coach relationships, they're complicated. especially as you're navigating tough times. And it could be what I'm most proud of is the way we've navigated this together and how we've stuck together and been through, some difficult moments, and how we're starting to celebrate some of the positive things that we've been trying to implement and build. So, it's not always unique that two people in our jobs can work so seamlessly, and it's something we're proud of, and it's something that we think really impacts the rest of our organization and our roster, and it's one of our strengths.
Chauncey, the team doesn't pick up your extension last offseason. As you mentioned, the NBA is ever-changing out here right now, and we know there's going to be more changes after the season. You could have easily used this second half of the season and said, hey, I'm going to go test myself out on the free market. What made you want to decide to come back here instead?
Yeah, I just felt very good about where we're at, and I now understand how long it takes to build a culture. And I feel like we've done that, I think the telltale of that, and for any coach, is if you're at some point when your team kind of takes on your personality and how you believe the game should be played, I think that you've gotten there, and I believe that our team has done that with me, and the entire time, I've been just saying, you never know when that's going to happen. You never know when your team is going to take the leap. You never know if the team will take the leap. And I just felt like we took some big strides this year, and had a lot to do with, the staff, and what we've done. But obviously, there's so much speculation, and this game, again, it's very fragile, so my people, and you hear everything, that I wasn't supposed to last through half of the season this year, and maybe Aaron just asked that question earlier. Maybe we don't go on that run. Who knows? You just never know, But I just had so much growing to do last year when they could have picked up that extension, and there was still things they needed to learn about me that they ended up learning, and it just all worked out. I just always believe you can't control fate, and what's going to happen is what's supposed to happen is going to, and this is what was supposed to happen, and I'm very, very happy about it.
Joe, you talked about you guys are about to enter the transaction window. Can you describe the role that Bert Cold will play in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bert's great. We spend a lot of time, when I say we do a thing which I think is really unique and very positive for what we're doing here. We call it a sync up, where it's myself, Chauncey, Dwayne, and Bert. Once a week, it's a big download on what's going on in our worlds that week. What are we working on? What do we need help with? What's going well? What isn't? And Bert plays a great role in that, where he's moderator. He's asking us questions. He's helping us think in different ways. He's providing insight, with, his decades of experience. So, that's a microcosm of the role Bert plays overall, where he's active. He cares about this team. He cares about us. He wants to see us all succeed, and he's challenging us. Hey, have you thought about this? Hey, we need to do this better. And it could be, the topics are wide-ranging, of course. Big stuff like roster decisions, there's input there and there's collaboration. Hey, have you thought about this? What about what's this team saying? There's definite, back and forth with myself and Chauncey and him, and good positive feedback.
How would you describe his basketball acumen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you lean on, or what do you value that he brings to the table?
His experience, he's been through decades worth of different versions of different rosters, from winning at the highest level or nearly the highest level to multiple finals teams in the early 90s to, some good runs in the 90s to some good 2000 and 2010 Blazer teams. So, it's that experience level that, something neither Chauncey or I really have in these roles. We're both, we're like young players in this league that are now entering our second deals. We're coming off of our rookie scale contracts. We still have a lot to learn so to have these voices, that have been through it and probably seen some of the things that we're going through, it's very valuable.
Real quick, you're one of the few people who has a dialogue with Jody Allen. Can you give some insight on to what her future is? Like, do you know if she has a deadline to sell or?
We don't talk about that. Jody is incredible. Jody talks to us all the time about a lot of different things. That's her business. We don't meddle in that. We just stay locked in on, the team and the staff and what we're building here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, Joe.
Yeah, you too.